we're really excited that we are able to take this work out onto the road, and that is, you know, with the support of the sponsorship of Flinders University, that's enabled, you know, Country Arts SA and State Theatre Company to partner up in doing this. And I think it's a really important work to take out. I think talking about mental health, not just in the country but also in the city, can be something that is challenging sometimes. And I think for me, something that makes Euphoria really special is that it just acknowledges that we're all on our own path of mental well-being and health, and we all have good days and we all have hard days, and that's okay. And it's okay to acknowledge that and talk about that, and that we don't have to feel isolated in experiencing that either, that we can, you know, try and be a little bit more open about it, I suppose. And I think particularly in this really interesting time that we're in now as we're filming this during the COVID-19 pandemic, where we are all self-isolating at home, or, you know, really kind of being forced to think about this stuff more. So I think this work is really relevant for everyone, but I'm really excited that it's particularly targeted and being able to be shared with regional South Australia.
It's important to tell this story in the same way that it's important to tell any other story, and especially now when the arts in general, but a theatre company in this instance, is really focusing on making sure their storytelling is diverse and captures a accurate representation of actual Australia. To leave out a country story, a rural story of that, is remiss and unforgivable, in the same way that it is completely unforgivable to ignore any aspect of our society. You know, I'm stealing this quote, but it's the State Theatre Company, not the Adelaide Theatre Company. And although that's a simple little saying, I just think that is just so true. And like, I grew up in the country, and so what I found, and I don't know if other people from the country will identify with this or not, but like, if you have family or friends that are from a metropolitan area or from the city, for some reason, you always are the one who have to make the trek up to the city to see them. For some reason, the distance to come from the city to visit the country is a longer trip than the other way around. And so, I don't know, that just sucks. And so I think it's vital that a cultural experience like State Theatre or Country Arts SA provide, go out and do the trek, and don't just expect everyone to come up here for a metropolitan cultural experience because the city is the only place that you can... Nah, I don't buy that. So that's why I think it's important to tell these stories, because it's important to tell all Australian stories as best we can, and this is a good one.
As someone who grew up in rural South Australia in a very small town, I really appreciate that State Theatre and Country Arts taking Euphoria out onto the road, because, well, and also presenting it within Adelaide, because it's so important to be able to see yourself reflected back to yourself. And I do really feel that connection with this story. Not only the small towns and the sense of that unique community, and the way that those communities interact with each other and hold each other up, and all of that, but also the prevalence of concerns around mental health. I think that it's just such a common thing, and it's something that is rarely spoken about at great lengths. So to take a story such as this out onto the road and allow that opportunity for people to talk about it, I think it's a very important thing to be doing.
So I think this story is really important, and it's really important that it shows a regional community and that way of life. When I grew up regionally, so I grew up in Port Pirie and then Nuriootpa, I don't remember seeing plays that showed what my country life was like. I feel like a lot of the plays I saw, or films or TV about country life, were this kind of idealised version of what living in the country is, and it didn't show the strengths and weaknesses of relationships and how great it can be to be living somewhere a bit more isolated and how challenging that can be. And I feel like this play shows that in a really genuine, nuanced way. It doesn't patronise, it doesn't talk down to anyone. I was actually talking to my grandma about it. She lives in the country and was a farmer for a long time. And we were talking about how important it is to talk about regional communities and mental health, and how it's a really difficult conversation to get started. And so I'm hoping with this play that it can start that conversation. And from chats with my grandma and a few other people, I think that it will.
I think this story is really important to tell because mental health is a subject that needs to be talked about. And I think the more people that talk about it, the better it is, the more resources that people are going to get. And the more people will know that they're not alone going through this. I've toured extensively through regional Australia, and I know that sometimes it's really, really tough being in a regional centre. You don't necessarily have the resources that you need. And I think that doing a play like this, it allows people to know that they're not alone and know that there are resources out there. And hopefully it will eventually get more resources into regional places as well.
I think that the reason it is important to tell stories of, in this case, people from rural Australia, but in all different cases, people of all varieties, is the reason that theatre is so important, is that it's about connection. And I think that for a long time, the kind of meta of entertainment has been very like metropolitan straight white man, and we have slowly been seeing people realizing in this funny capitalist world that you can sell things to people who aren't metropolitan straight white men. It was wonderful in 2018. We did Gods of Strangers by Eleanor Karapetis, which was a show set in Port Pirie, but about Italian and Greek migrants to Australia in the late 40s, early 50s. And we filled spaces with little old Italian and Greek migrants, my nonna included, and it was wonderful because you do see a lot of the same faces and a lot of the same archetypes in theatre and in audiences, and it's really heartening to see people who aren't those same faces represented both on stage, on screen, on the field, and in the audience.